Everybody, we are going to let y'all roll in. These were some impromptu live sessions that we decided to do. And so I'm sure that there will be people straggling in. We're actually going to be doing 3 live sessions today on the Wounds launch or book launch party, the Wounds book launch party. So my book, Wounds, How Hurt, Heartache, and Tragedy Become the Keys to Unlocking Greatness. Boom! It is live right now. You can go buy this book on Amazon. You can go buy it on Barnes & Noble. There are other places out there, but I know those are the 2 primary ones that you can go grab a copy of this book. I decided to do some live sessions today, this afternoon. Later this evening, we are going to be doing a live event here in Yorba Linda, California, where I office. Going to have probably 50, 60, 70 people that are going to come in to celebrate. We're going to have some food, some drinks. We're going to sign some books for anybody that wants a signed copy of that book. We're going to have some good cocktails, maybe a cigar. Man, the weight that has been lifted off of my shoulders through this process or today is just incredible. So I want to do a couple of things right away. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to include you in what we're going to do for people later today. So if you are on this live session right now, so you are only going to have until the next live session. So before 11:30 Pacific time, we're going to do a live session at 9 a.m., which is the one we're doing right now Pacific, 11:30 Pacific, and then again at 1 p.m. Pacific time. So I take back what I said. So you have until I close out. So if you email me before the end of this live session, ryan@ryanjamesmiller.com, I'm taking a risk here. If you email me a screenshot of your purchase of the Kindle, the paperback version, the hard copy, which it's going to take a few more days to get those out. If you email me a proof of receipt that you purchased that book, I will ship you a signed copy of one of these paperbacks, personalized to you. So if you want that, if you want a signed copy sent directly to you, then all I need from you is in the next 20 minutes, because we're going to be done here about 9:20 Pacific time. You need to email me proof of purchase of one of the versions, hardback, paperback, or Kindle version, and then your mailing address. I'll send you, I'll pop a couple of other gifts in there, but for sure you're going to get a signed paperback copy. We're going to do that for every single person that is at the event tonight that purchases a book. We're going to give them a signed copy. So I want to do that for you. If you can't make it tonight, then I don't want you to be without the opportunity to do that. By the way, what's up, Dale? Thanks for being here, man. Super appreciate you. If you pop in here, just dump your what's ups into the chat. I would love to see you, say hi to you. Just say thank you guys so much for your support. So I wanted to use this first live session just to share a little bit about the journey to this point. But I don't just want this to be about me. I want you to get some value from this. But what I want to do is this first session, I'm going to share a little bit about how I got to here and actually having a book in my hand. I mean, this is crazy that this is happening. The next session, I'm going to talk a lot about who contributed to that, give some shout outs. We're going to give away some other things during that next session. And then the final session, which is going to be at 1 o'clock Pacific time today, I'm going to be sharing a few tips, takeaways that you can have as you go off on your own journey, hopefully to unlock your greatness. Okay, so I do want to share a little bit about, and I don't want to belabor this too much, but I think this will be helpful for you because this just isn't about my book. When I was first asked to write a book, or when I was first approached with the idea, hey man, you should write a book. Well, that was on the back end of a story that many of you know, which was my experience at Route 91, 2017. We lost a friend that night. My wife was nearly shot. Just so much devastation, so much hurt. And so through just me telling that story and over and over again, people kept saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. And I said, and I stand by what I said then now, which is I will never profit off the backs of our friend that was killed, off of the other 57 that were killed that night, or any of the 22,000 people that forever had their lives changed by being in that crowd that evening. And so I just pushed off the idea. And little by little, people kind of kept pressuring some friends close to me. They're like, you need to tell that story. You need to tell that story. And I'm like, I don't really want to tell just that story. Yes, that's a big part of my life to this point, but I just didn't want to tell that story. So I eventually, in probably early 2020, started to write. I started to write a book. It was basically on my coaching philosophy, how to achieve it, perform at a high level, how to achieve the things that you set out to achieve for yourself. And so I did just that. I started writing, and a friend and I got into kind of a writing competition. We were committed to each writing 500 words a day, and I got about 15,000 words in, and then I hit a wall in probably May or June of 2020. I just stopped. I wasn't feeling it anymore. And so that process continued, or lack of a writing process continued. Late in 2020, after a couple of other significant events, I'm having a conversation with a consultant that I was working with on a coaching program specifically for men, and to help them break free from the prison of living kind of in their idea of success and ultimately living free and happy and fulfilled. And as I was sharing some things with him, he said to me, he said, well, why are you so passionate about it? And I told him, and he said, he goes, does this have anything to do with your parents' divorce? And I was like, you're crazy. that was that was 2020. My parents got divorced in 1984, I think is what it was. And so I'm like, no, absolutely not. That's just so long ago. And he says, I challenge you to take some time to think about that. So I did. I decided, fine, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I dug. And as I dug, I started to realize that there were actually some unresolved issues from so many years prior that had shaped who I was, but I hadn't completely unpacked and understood them, and had also hindered me from being who I desired to be, but I hadn't completely unpacked those. So I started to dig further. At the same time, and this is why it's relevant for people like you listening, at the same time as I was writing, or as I was thinking about this idea of going back into my past and my past hurts and how those impacted me, I started to think about every single client I'd worked with to that point. I started my coaching practice in 2012. I'd really emphasized in on human behavior, psychology, and how we are typically our greatest barriers to success. In 2018, as I went back out into coaching again, and I was just thinking about all of my clients and all of the things that were hindering them from success. And I was like, good Lord, this is it. What's actually holding them back is them. I mean, we were working on process and strategy, building businesses, building out sales systems, generating revenue. But ultimately, the reason why we're having the same conversations around why you're not doing what you need to do, how you can do it better, what you need to do better, why you did this and not that, it just kept coming back to they were hindering themselves. They were their own greatest barriers to success. Or as one of my favorite bands, local here to SoCal, once sang and sings over and over and over again because it has continued to be such a popular song, we are our own worst enemy. That's my shout out to the band Lit. But it's true. And so I decided to explore this idea. And I'll skip over a lot of details on the in between, but I just finally felt this need to help people really go get what they want by first identifying it was them that was holding them back. And off on my journey I went. I hired I engaged with a publisher that was a book coaching organization and a community. I joined a cohort. And the more that I unpacked my story, I mean, in my book, in this book right here, can you believe it? It's real. um, I don't just talk about my parents' divorce and the ways that impacted me. I talk about all the early struggles I had with alcohol, drugs, gambling, sleeping around, and all the ways that negatively impacted me. About the lies that I told, the things that I stole to try and get me to where I was today, or where I was at that point. I talk about nearly shipwrecking my marriage because I considered cheating on my wife, about my business failing shortly after it started and losing everything that we had worked so hard for, the home that my family had bought and we'd raised our kids in, literally just about everything but the clothes off of our backs. I talk about the decades long struggles with my dad on again and off again. I talk about unfair accusations that were pinned on me by an organization that I was working for. And even my most fresh wound, at least to the point of writing the book, which was the church. My season of pastoral ministry for 8 years and ultimately stepping down. And I started to ask, like, as I was unpacking those wounds, those hurts, those stories, it caused me to continue to ask God, why? Why did this happen to me? God, what are you doing? And again, I started to realize and ultimately developed this framework called the wound analysis framework. And that framework was an opportunity to just acknowledge the fact that I was hurt, either by myself or by somebody else. That that hurt had an effect on me in the past, and because they were unresolved to one degree or another, it continued to have an impact on me negatively, an effect on me negatively. And then finally, as God began to reveal to me why, I started to recognize that every single one of those hurts, every single one of those moments of heartache, tragedy, were all ultimately tools God was using to make me better, a better husband, a better father, a better friend, a better son, a better business leader, a better member of society. And gosh, don't we all need today to be better members of society in a society that is divided and struggling so deeply? The more I wrote, the more I realized, the more I wrote, the more I started to see and understand that this just laid over every other person that I had interacted with professionally and even personally. I was rewinding times that I would sit down with close friends of mine that had been struggling or were struggling in their marriage. And as I listened, as I soaked it in, as I analyzed, I realized that it was past hurt that had them where they were at. As I thought about my clients that were successful, but were that had hit a plateau and were trying to figure out how to just get one level higher, that something about the way they saw themselves prevented them from achieving all that they were created for. One such story actually did not even come to fruition until long after I'd finished my book, in this interim between when it was done and when we published it. So I started to engage with this client, and um, I want to be somewhat general to protect him, but um, he was a successful athlete for a period of time, growing up and through college, even into professional baseball. Um, he was a successful business owner, owned multiple franchises of a large organization, and the franchise business wasn't working out the way that he had hoped. It just wasn't breaking through like he believed it could, like he thought he was capable of doing. And so he started to realize that because the business opportunity wasn't what he had hoped it to be, it was time for him to exit. And with that came this period of a year and a half of stalemate. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know how to take action anymore. And his wife actually was the one that wanted him to seek somebody to guide him to make his next decision. But he was hesitant. Through a friend of mine, he connected, my friend connected with this woman. My friend recommended me. I spoke to the wife. I realized just how valuable I could be to this man as he was going through this season of life. But she was concerned because when we talked, she didn't think that he would on his own reach out to me. I recorded a video one day and sent it to him and just poured my heart out that I got it. I knew what it was like. And I believed that if he gave me the chance, I could help him. And by God's grace, we started to work together. And little by little, we started to unpack past hurts, his fear of failure because he had never truly failed before, his fear of what other people thought of him, but not because of what other people thought of him, but because of how highly he thought himself to be. This was a good man with great values that put his family first. But he was afraid that the place that he had elevated himself to would be torn down. It wasn't until months into our engagement, though, that he came clean as to what really was holding him back. And it was a devastating moment in his life when he was just sold out, hurt, destroyed by people that he cared so deeply about. And that ripple effect was still being felt decades later. And once we started to talk about that, he started to see just what he was capable of. Though he had achieved success in his past, he realized that he was holding himself back from so much more. And I can't wait until he's finally comfortable enough to tell that story himself. Not to make me look good, but for him to give other people the opportunity to see that even somebody like him struggles with these same things. And also so he can brag on the victory that he now claims as he is on to one of the most amazing business opportunities of his whole life. He's investing into his family in ways that nobody thought possible because he was already doing such a good job. And he's standing strong on his faith in Jesus through it all. I can't wait until he tells that story. And I see stories like that over and over and over again. And until people are comfortable telling theirs, I want to keep telling mine. It's not easy. to know that you or anybody else, but more importantly, my kids will read forever about the fact that at some point, gosh, I considered being unfaithful to their mom. I never want them to think like that of me. But if that's what it takes to help other people be okay with what happened in their past so they can heal and grow and become all that God has created them to be, I'm all for it. I'm not a martyr. I'm just here to be a contributor to this life that God has called us to live. Callie, thank you so much for weighing in. I see that comment, and man, I want to read this a little bit. I actually haven't even read the whole thing. I'm going to read this live, but Callie Ortega, she and I are connected through the employee benefits industry. She's chatting in or commenting in from LinkedIn. I don't know if she's still live or not, but she says this: I was not familiar with your story, only that you had one. Thank you for sharing our journeys of self-exploration, the process of working through, not around. So powerful that you said that, Callie. The process of working through, not around the pain and struggle, is both healing for ourselves and can serve as a catalyzing inspiration for others. It is messy and frustrating and soul crushing, but then in equal or even greater measure, it is rewarding and liberating and spiritually fulfilling. Thank you again for sharing your story with the world. She says her copy's on order. She also asks, will an Audible be available? Yes. Now that I'm through this process, we are going to go record this book for two purposes. One is we are going to make the Audible version available through Amazon. We will sell that for as little as Amazon will possibly allow us to do so. But also, we are going to release that as the next season of my podcast. We are going to dump every single episode, most likely on the same day. And so you will be able to listen through the entire book. I am actually considering doing that interview style, having somebody else ask me questions as I read. So would love to get some feedback if you think that would be interesting, to have other people asking me questions as I go. So anyway, Audible's coming. My goal for that audio version hopefully is going to be sometime towards the end of October, early November. That's the goal. That's the hope. We're going to have to see. I have a friend that's going to lend me some studio time. So super grateful for him. But we'll see. But yes, Audible's on its way. And yes, I will be doing that myself. As much as I hate listening to myself speak, this is my story. I don't want anybody else to tell it, which is also why I wrote it and didn't get anybody to ghostwrite it for me. David, ask, dude, I love you so much. You can say you love my mission. I love you. You are a huge contributor to my life. You continue to be. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for that. Deanna, I appreciate you so much. I love the way that you live your life in public and the way that other people talk so highly of you. You are just a great testament to walking in the light. And I am so, so, so appreciative of you and your contribution to me, even by way of just you living and me receiving that. Brian Snyder, dude, thanks for jumping in here. Yes, the refiner's fire is unpleasant. Nobody likes to deal with all this hard crap that we go through, but you're right, it is required. I mean, any single one of us that has gone through any hurt, heartache, or tragedy, once we get far enough removed, we're always able to reflect back and see that we're better for it. Like have said this so many times, of every single event that happened in my life, by far the worst was Route 91 because we lost a friend's life. And apart from sacrificing my wife, my two kids, or my own life, I would give everything up Every dollar I will ever make in the future, every dollar I've made to this point, whatever, I will give everything else up if it means that I could go back and unwind what happened. What happened on October 1st, 2017? Without question. It was awful. And there are so many people still in pain. I can't change that. But what I can do is make sure that it wasn't in vain. And part of that is me growing, is me getting better, and me being a more positive contribution to the world. So, with that, I'm going to wrap up part one, the Wounds book launch party virtually. If you have not yet, if you just jumped in and you're on right now, I made a commitment to those at the beginning. I'm going to make this one more time because you're only going to have 4 more minutes to do this until 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. So I better get talking. If you, before 9:30 a.m. Pacific time, email me, ryan@ryanjamesmiller.com. If you email me a screenshot of your purchase receipt, Kindle, paperback, hardback version, whatever. If you email me a screenshot of your purchased book before 9:30 Pacific time, I will send you a personally addressed and signed paperback back to you with some other stuff. So send me the receipt, some kind of screenshot of that, proof that you bought the book, and then also an address so I can send things back to you. So please do that. Thank you guys so much for sticking around, for listening in. Come back at 11:30 Pacific time. 11:30 Pacific time, I'm going to be back live on all of these channels, and I'm going to be sharing some thanks of those that contributed, but I've got some other cool things that I'm going to weave into that. So 11:30 Pacific time, come back for the second of 3 parts to this Wounds book launch party virtually. If you are local to Southern California and you want to join us live tonight, hit me up and I'll make sure that you get directions to get here to be part of our live event this evening. 50, 60, 70 friends or something like that are going to come out, eat, drink, have a great time, and just celebrate everybody's contribution to this book becoming a reality. Thank you guys. I love you so much. This is amazing. You guys are the best.